Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to a third reading of about the presidents. We're going to do Mr. Ford, Gerald R. Ford, who was born on July 14, 1913 in Omaha, Nebraska, passed away the day after Christmas 2006 in Rancho Mirage, California. He was given his nickname was Jerry, with a J. He was Episcopalian. He graduated from the University of Michigan in 1935, went to Yale University Law School, graduated in 1941. He was a lawyer. Enlisted during World War II. He enlisted in the U.S. Navy in April 1942 as ensign and rose to lieutenant commander by the time he was discharged in February 1946. His biological father was Leslie L. King. His adoptive father was Gerald R. Ford Sr. Mother was Dorothy A. Gardner King Ford. His wife was Elizabeth Ann Bloomer Warren Ford. Got married in 1948. Children include Michael Gerald, John Gardner, Stephen Meigs, and Susan Elizabeth, all alive, apparently, according to this book. And in his political life, Mr. Ford was a U.S. representative for a very long time. About 14 years or so. No, longer than that. Let's see. 73, 40, that's 30 years? 4, 5, 6, 7, yeah. Almost 30 years. 26 years. No. 43. 73 would be 30 years. Huh. 43, 9. 24. Yeah, almost 24 years. House Minority Leader for, 8 years. Vice President for a year. Only one term, August 9th, 1974 through January 20th, 1977. He was a Republican. He left office being defeated by Jimmy Carter. His vice president, Mr. Ford's vice president, was Nelson A. Rockefeller. No inauguration. He took the oath of office following Richard Nixon's resignation. He is the only president never to be elected or inaugurated in either presidency or vice presidency. Cabinet included Mr. Henry Kissinger as Secretary of State, William E. Simon, Secretary of the Treasury, Secretary of Defense, James R. Schlesinger, followed by Donald Rumsfeld. Attorney General with William B. Saxby, followed by Edward H. Levi. Secretary of the Interior, Rogers C.B. Morton, followed by Stanley Hathaway, followed by Thomas S. Klepp. Secretary of Agriculture, Earl L. Butz, John A. Nebel. Secretary of Commerce, Frederick B. Dent, followed by Roger C.B. Morton, followed by Ellie L. Richardson. Secretary of Labor, Peter J. Brennan, followed by John T. Dunlap, followed by W. J. Ussery Jr., interesting last name. Secretary of Health, Education, and Welfare, Hugh Casper W. Weinberger, followed by F. David Matthews. Secretary of HUD was James T. Lynn, followed by Carla A. Hills. Secretary of Transportation, Cloud S. Brennegar, followed by William T. Coleman Jr. Supreme Court appointments was John Paul Stevens, 1975. Mr. Ford survived 2 assassination attempts. within 1 month, both made by women. State of the Union, the population of 1974 was U.S. population of 1974 was 203,302,031. National debt in 1977 was $718,943,000,000 even. In his college days, Ford was offered the opportunity to try out for both the Green Bay Packers and the Chicago Bears football teams. 25th Amendment, 1967. 25th Amendment provides for presidential succession and explains the procedure should the chief executive become unable to discharge the duties of the office. Whenever there is a vacancy in the office of the vice president, the president shall nominate a vice president who shall take office upon confirmation by a majority of both houses of Congress, states Section 2. And so after Vice President Agnew resigned, President Nixon appointed Gerald Ford, who was confirmed by Congress. Then Section 1 was utilized upon Nixon's resignation to allow Ford to take the presidential oath of office. In case of the removal of the president from office or of his death or resignation, the vice president shall become president. Although right-handed, Ford wrote with his left hand. Privacy Act of 1974. In reaction to the egregious breach of privacy during the Watergate era, Congress worked to ensure that future violations were not allowed. Although stating that gathering information, maintaining, and exchanging records within government agencies was forbidden unless the party involved had granted permission, exceptions were allowed for law enforcement, statistical purposes for the Census Bureau, administrative purposes, etc. The Department of Justice admits that after a quarter of a century, 25 years, of court decisions, the language of the Act remains imprecise and certain privacy issues are still unresolved. Interesting. Rockefeller Commission. In 1975, a commission appointed by President Ford and headed by Vice President Nelson Rockefeller, related to John Rockefeller, investigated alleged abuses of the CIA within the United States. This included opening mail of parties under watch and conducting surveillance of dissidents. Another part of the investigation involved President Kennedy's assassination to determine if the CIA was involved. The commission echoed the Warren Commission in stating that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone in Dallas. Rockefeller's group also examined evidence of CIA involvement in planned or actual assassinations of foreign leaders, but did not include this in their report released in June of 1975. In college, Mr. Ford worked as a park ranger at Yellowstone. Saigon Airlift. Buoyed by easy conquests in South Vietnam, North Vietnamese troops escalated their attacks in March and April 1975, causing hundreds of thousands of refugees to flee literally for their lives. Many were gunned down by soldiers while they attempted to leave by any means possible. Americans in Saigon began evacuation procedures. The first was Operation Baby Lift to send Vietnamese children to America for adoption. One of the 30 flights crashed soon after takeoff, killing over half on board. Ouch. Then American personnel and South Vietnamese who had been helpful to the Americans departed, more than 120,000, some by air and some by sea. Operation Frequent Wind occurred on April 29th and 30th, as over 6,000 more were evacuated by helicopters from the American Embassy. More than 660 helicopter missions were flown, but not all of the South Vietnamese were rescued. Some 300 were left to their fates. Ouch. And that is the reading of Gerald R. Ford. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a great day. Bye-bye.